Happy Friday, everybody. Today's February 7th, and here's your trade review. Basically, I'm just going to go over the trades that I took, and if there's anything you want me to go over other than that, just let me know. MEET was on watch today for a breakthrough this 248 resistance that basically has touched a few times in the past. And today it ended up opening pretty close to that area, so I was very interested in the long, and it gave the intraday break pattern. Now, one thing that you might want to note is this prior resistance up here around 270. You can see that it's touched this resistance a few times. So I would look at that as a clear area that the stock could hit for potential reward from a reward standpoint. So basically, I was thinking 270s on this, 269, 270. And that's what we ended up getting going into the 2-minute chart. Basically, we had the little intraday break right out of the open. And I didn't get the fill I wanted. I actually wanted my fill a few cents lower, but I kind of chased it a little bit. So when it comes to these $2 stocks, you know, these cheap stocks, a couple cents does matter. So for me, it was kind of a pain, but I was in it, and, you know, I was in full size at that time. So I didn't really have any room to scale in more. So if I would have maybe got in just a quarter or something like that, or a half, and then scaled in the rest, but I was afraid this thing was just going to go, you know, straight up and not give me that chance. So I took the risk, took a few cents off of where I wanted to be, and got the entry. It ended up pulling back, of course, and finally it had popped, but you know, it never really had that follow through. So the follow through I was basically looking to happen throughout this level up here. Never did, never got it. We got a pullback, and this is sorry. That was an alert. This is where I was starting to say, oh, maybe this thing's not going to make it. But I pulled a trend line because I noticed that it held a higher low. You can see this is a higher low than the previous low, and then it ended up holding a higher low again. So I was thinking, well, I pulled a trend line. If I once we got a push through this prior high here, I was able to pull my stop behind this pivot low. So my stop started behind the low a day, and then I moved it up behind this pivot low here. And then once we got the break of this prior high here, I could use this pivot here as a stop to put my stop behind as well. So, you know, this kept me in. I was getting kind of annoyed with it because after a while, it was just flatlining, and I really couldn't tell what it was going to do. It could have very easily fallen off a cliff here, stopped me out, and not worked at all. But I stayed patient and I stuck to my rules on this one, and that paid off for me in the end. So that was good to see. Keep getting alerts on GCAP, so I'll have to see what that did. But basically, I scaled out. I had pulled an extension, basically intraday extension, and I was getting a few levels, 265 and then the 270s up here, and so I started scaling out. I scaled a quarter out up here when we actually got that follow through and popped above this prior high here. So I just wanted to take it off for good measure just in case. So I took a quarter, and then we ended up getting another pop. So I took a little more because that was another extension. And then 269, 270 was my idea area, comparing that level with the daily chart, which had that prior resistance around 270, which let me just show you that again so I can, so just to put it in your mind, this prior resistance around 270, that was basically where I was looking to take off the rest of my position. So I ended up trying to squeeze my stop. I actually got filled here with a squeezed stop and got a little bit of slippage, but that's all right. And then I got the rest out. You can't really see it, but there's a lot going on there. But basically, once it couldn't break 270, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, you know what, let me just take it and run with it. So that's what I did on that one. And then the other one was ARWR. Now, ARWR was actually one that I pulled from the percent gainers this morning. So every morning I scan the percent gainers list on my trade stations, or if you have any other application that you could see percent gainers and losers on. That's where I found this, because it wasn't on my watch list for the simple fact that it had closed down here in the bottom third of this bar. If it had closed at the top of this bar, then I would have definitely had that on watch list, but I did not expect this to make it all the way back up to the breakout level 1570 by today. But what happened, and what happens a lot, which is why you always should check the percent gainers, is it gapped up. So it gapped up right literally at that breakout level around the 1570s. So if we take a look at the 2-minute chart, I mean, this daily chart is just, it's a beauty. But here's the 2-minute chart. So we gapped up, well, actually, looks like we opened around the 1550s, but nonetheless, we opened up close to the breakout point, and then we had this pullback. Now, I actually was not looking at this pretty much after. Let me clean this up. Here's what I was looking at first. Out of the open, I was looking at buying this on a pullback because I really liked the daily chart. But once we broke this edge here, which was holding at 1584, 1585, once we broke below that, I was thinking to myself, okay, we broke below that. I'm not going to buy the pullback on this. I'm not sure what it's going to do. Sometimes gaps can be tricky to trade. So I let it off my radar. I was like, okay, I'm done with this. And then I was scanning through my list, and I noticed that it had put in this base down here, and it had held this support around 1560s, and that was above the low of the day here. So I was thinking to myself, okay, and then I noticed that it had ramped up and pulled back a little bit. So basically what I did was I bought on this pullback in anticipation of this move, in anticipation of us testing the high of day, which was up here around 1620, and then possibly breaking through the high of day to maybe reach some extensions that I had pulled on the daily chart. So I'll show you here on the daily chart how I pulled this extension. It blasted through it. 1690s was basically the extension. It blasted right through it. Very strong chart, very strong stock, lots of volume today if you take a look at the volume. So this one just ended up being beautiful. So basically, I was buying the pullback in a sense, but I kind of let it base here a little bit, and then just made my decision based on the price action, after a little while. So it based, it ran up, pulled back. That's when I bought, anticipating this to retest the high day and continue through. If you would have bought the pullback here, anywhere through here, you would have had to hold through this action, and you would have had to be able to have your stop behind the low a day. And at the time, I wasn't comfortable with that. So that's why I scratched it on this particular pullback. I would have been expecting it to do that. But, sometimes you get this. You get these stocks that just have to base. They have to find what they're going to do before you can really tell what you should expect on it. And after this support held and we had that push up, I was thinking this thing could really go today, for the simple fact of the daily chart. The daily chart is what made me trade this stock with confidence today, period. So that's really important, to know what you're looking for, to know what you're anticipating. I wasn't taking this, with blindly. I knew exactly what I was looking for, and the daily chart had everything going for it. Couldn't have asked for more. So that's today's trading. Let me know if you guys have any questions on this stuff. Don't forget, check your percent gainers, losers lists in the morning. They've been really helpful lately. They've been pulling a lot of things from, just things that you might not catch if you don't have an alert set, or something like this that wasn't quite ready, but it ended up gapping up and giving us the perfect setup. So keep your eyes peeled on those movers. Don't forget.